Inside a castle, Van was vowing to dedicate his very being to walking the path of the hero and following the will of Lord Demis when Cardinal Lubo arrived with a girl wearing a mask. Van asked who she was, so Lubo explained that she was their new comrade, and she introduced herself as Esta. Van got excited when he realized that she was the masked knight who defeated one of the Demon Lord's army's generals. He also introduced himself as Van Flamberge. Esta thought his name was familiar, and Lubo introduced him as the 8th prince from the Flamberge kingdom that had fallen against the Demon Lord, and he had become the hero. Van was certain it was Lord Demis who had brought Esta to his side, and he thought it was a pleasure to fight alongside her. Lavender also introduced herself as Van's closest confidant and partner, while Lubo declared that their party was now complete, and Van announced that they would create a tale where the hero saves the world. At the same time, Godwin was trying to convince Yrandrala to let him go after he told her Red's location. However, Yrandrala refused, and she reminded him how he promised to guide her to Red's location while they were drinking, so Godwin could only regret that he had fallen to her trick. After arriving at the town entrance, Yrandrala introduced themselves as adventurers. The guards seemed to recognize Godwin, but he still let them pass happily. Godwin was thankful that Zoltan's security was lax, but the guard finally recognized Godwin's identity when he walked past him. Meanwhile, Rudy was happily messing with animals during their journey. Red noticed that she was in a good mood, so Rudy explained that it was the first time they were on a journey unrelated to fighting, unlike the times when she was still a hero and words couldn't describe her happiness. They were headed to the mountain range called the Wall at the World's End. There were no battles unlike when they were in the hero's party, so they were on a chill and quiet journey. While taking a break, Mogram expressed his amazement at Red, who would go to a place everyone avoids to make an engagement ring. He thought Red was crazy, but Red was determined to obtain the blue sapphire, thinking it matched the color of Rit's eye. He hopes the gem giants have it, as he didn't want to compromise on a gift that was only given once in a lifetime. Red immediately blushed, so Mogram immediately teased them. However, he actually joined their journey because of his love for his pregnant wife as well. Rudy congratulated him before he explained that he wanted to obtain an earth crystal and make a knife out of it, as it was famous for its sharpness and people would not even notice they had been cut with it. He thought it would ease his wife's pain during surgery when she gave birth. They hope the gem giants will also have the rare earth crystal, and Mogram was thankful he could join Red on his journey. Rudy thought they were all thinking of someone, and she wanted to do the same and support Red to repay how he had faced countless dangers for her sake. After their break, they noticed the goblins waiting in ambush. Although they wanted to avoid fighting, they were still well prepared for it. Mogram was proud to see the sword he forged cut through the goblins with ease in Red's hands. However, he was speechless when Rudy killed the goblins barehanded. Mogram realized that one of the spears used by the goblin was forged by him, and they felt grief knowing that its owner had fallen to the goblins. Because of this, they were reminded that the world is rife with violence, as the divine blessings granted by the Almighty require slaying someone who has a blessing to level up. Rudy asked Red if she had made a mistake by turning her back from combat. Although she had the strongest blessing, Red thought she hadn't made a mistake, as she only got her life back. However, Rudy remembered Shaysandan's words that the Almighty and humanity wouldn't let her live a peaceful life. At the same time, Yrandrala and Godwin arrived at Red's house. Godwin noticed that Red and Rit were out. He thought they were on a date, while Yrandrala asked if he had any idea where they went. He replied that he had no idea and asked her to let him go. However, the guard arrived, as he had figured out that he was Godwin. The guard had heard that he broke out of prison, but he couldn't believe that Godwin would waltz back to Zoltan. Yrandrala was confused as she thought that Godwin was Rit and Red's friend, so the guard explained that Godwin had actually attacked Rit, and he even kidnapped a child that they had taken under their wing, and his misdeeds didn't even end there. Yrandrala was enraged, thinking that Godwin had also betrayed Red. Godwin didn't hide his enmity with Red, but he denied that he betrayed him. Yrandrala didn't believe him, so he had no choice but to run away. However, she summoned a huge vine to stop his escape and attack him. Tis pulled Godwin away to save him, but she immediately asked what he did this time. Godwin explained the situation, and Tis seemed familiar with Yrandrala's name. However, Yrandrala was still fuming, and she summoned a giant serpent made up of vines. Tis stared at the monster, but she wanted to cry in fear deep inside, also panicking when Godwin provoked Yrandrala further. Tis cut through the vines, as she didn't want Yrandrala to continue her rampage inside the town. However, Yrandrala easily caught her, but luckily Mistram arrived to freeze the monster. Godwin had an idea how strong Mistram was, but she claimed that she was just a retired old lady now, and she knew her magic wasn't enough to hold back the monster. Mistram supported Tis as she tried to attack Yrandrala directly, but it was still fruitless as she was caught by the vines with ease. Yrandrala asked for her identity, so she explained that she was Red and Rit's friend. Yrandrala doubted her at first, but she finally believed her when she mentioned that Red was looking for a gemstone for Rit's engagement ring at the wall at the world's end. Yrandrala was glad that Red and Rit were as close as ever. However, Mistram reminded her to fix the mess she caused before she left. At the same time, Red's group was staying in the forest where the Zoogs were living. Mogram was afraid, as the Zoogs were man-eating monsters, so Red explained that he was friends with their elder so they wouldn't hurt them. Rit was already used to Red's strange connections, while Red explained that Zoogs might know the Gem Giant's settlement since they know a lot about the wall at the world's end. The Elder and Red happily greeted each other, and the Elder even wished that Red would visit more often. Red apologized, explaining that it was hard to leave Zoltan. The Elder thought he got married, so Red explained that it was still a plan. But the Elder still wished that they had a blessed future together. Afterwards, Red took out a ham, and while the Elder was really grateful while receiving it, Red asked if he knew where the Gem Giant's settlement was. The Elder happily agreed to tell him. However, he asked them to be careful, as the Gem Giants were acting strange recently. Although they didn't know the reason, they noticed that they seemed angry, so he asked Red to be cautious. At the same time, a little Zoog started crying after falling from a tree, although his mom thought he would be fine. Rudy still healed him. The spirits told Rit that the trees were weakened, so she asked Red to make some fertilizer, and she promised that they would do what they could, so the Elder happily thanked them. While Rudy and Mogram were sleeping peacefully, Rit noticed that Red was thinking about something. Red explained that the new truth blessing that Rudy acquired seemed to come from within her and not from the Almighty. It was also canceling her hero's blessing, which was taking away her will and individuality. Red didn't know how or why that happened, but he was determined to always be on Rudy's side, and Rit promised to support her as well. At the same time, Yrandrala noticed the plant's weakened state. She thought something was wrong with the soil and something was happening up in the mountains. While resting around the fire, Yrandrala asked the reason why Tis had joined her. She thought Tis didn't need to guide her, so Tis admitted that she was interested in the hot spring at the wall at the world's end. However, she was actually worried about what Yrandrala's reaction would be when she found out that Rudy was with Red and Rit. Tis asked Yrandrala's reason for joining the hero's party. Because of this question, Yrandrala could confirm that Red was really Gideon, so she also explained that she joined the hero's party because her dear friend Gideon was there. She wanted to help her friend more than to save the world. She also explained that it was absurd to attempt to defeat the Demon Lord with a party of 6. She thought it was nonsense to leave things up to the hero. Hearing this, Tis asked if there was no need for the hero to fight for the world. Because of her question, Yrandrala realized that Rudy was also with Red, and she was happy about it. After arriving near the peak of the mountain, Rudy and Red happily watched the sky. He told Rudy to live the life she wanted, and he promised that he would always have her back, even against the Almighty. At the same time, Tis called out to Rudy, while Yrandrala was in tears as she jumped into Red's embrace. Meanwhile, Van's party just finished slaying a monster. Esther regretted that there were casualties. However, Van explained that the person just fulfilled his role, as the owlbear's blessing was destined to attack that person. Esther was confused, but Van declared that it was all Lord Demi's will. He would get stronger through their sacrifice, and he would fulfill his role as a hero and rid the world of evil. Because of the low temperature in the mountains, the group took a break to have some warm tea. Yrandrala was still happy after reuniting with Red, and that he was already living together with Rit. She also suggested that they move to the kingdom of Kuraman with her. The couple were surprised, while Rudy immediately rejected, so Yrandrala asked them to hear her out first. Kuraman is the biggest city-state on the continent of Avalon. It has spring-like weather because of magic. High elves live in this state, and Yrandrala declared that they would never betray their allies and friends. Red thought it came out of nowhere, but Yrandrala was still upset that he got kicked out of the hero's party despite working so hard for them. Red thought it was inevitable, as he couldn't keep up with the battles anymore. However, for Yrandrala, it was still unacceptable, and she wanted to adventure with Red even if he became a dead weight. She also couldn't understand how a princess like Rit was left alone by her own country. As if it were her, she wouldn't let Rit set off alone, even if it was her own decision. Red and Rit were thankful for Yrandrala's concern, but they still refused to come with her, as they were living happily in Zoltan after developing great friendships with the people living there. Yarandrala was worried that Red would get betrayed again. However, Red thought it was fine, as the kind of friendship he has with the people of Zoltan was more than enough for him. Yarandrala looked dejected, so Red and Rit invited her to live with them instead. She agreed, although she thought that Kuraman was still the best. Red started preparing more tea because of the chilly weather. However, Tis suddenly interrupted them, saying that she knew a place where they could warm up. Tis brought them to a hot spring, and while they were amazed by the beautiful view, Yarandrala hugged Rudy. She was happy that Rudy was finally free to live her life the way she wanted. At the same time, Tis rated the hot spring with a score of 95. She explained that she deducted 5 points because it was too far from Zoltan. Afterwards, Rit asked what kind of monster the gem giants were, so Rudy explained that they gain energy by cutting gems, and Tis added that it was similar to how they needed to eat to survive, although Rit thought it wasn't too relatable when she tried imagining it. Yarandrala asked if the gem giants had the gems they were looking for. Rit affirmed, and she explained that they would exchange the Zoltanian glass for it as Red was sure that they would like it. Yarandrala was happy for Rit, but she also asked where Red was, and when she heard that he was bathing alone, Yarandrala came to join him. Rit also joined, as she couldn't stop Yarandrala. Tis asked Rudy if she was fine with Red and Rit getting married. Rudy admitted that she actually wanted Rit to marry Red, but surprisingly, Rudy wanted to be Red's lover even if they couldn't get married. Tis was completely dumbfounded after hearing it. Mogram wasn't happy when he heard that Yarandrala invited Red and Rit to live in Kuraman. Yarandrala argued that they would have better lives there, but Mogram called the High Elves lawless and said that it was better for the couple to stay in Zoltan with the dwarves. Rit was surprised that High Elves really don't get along with dwarves, while Red was speechless. The group finally arrived at the Gem Giants settlement. However, they immediately noticed that something was off. The leader of the Gem Giants apologized that they couldn't offer anything to welcome them. The group didn't mind it, and Red immediately took out the Zoltanian glass, saying that they wanted to trade it. The Gem Giants thought it was beautiful. However, their leader explained that they didn't have any gems left to offer in exchange for it. Hearing this, Red and Rit looked at each other worriedly. At the same time, a little gem giant approached the group to stare closely at the glass. His mother tried to stop him, but Red actually gave him the glass, so the little gem giant rejoiced after thanking Red. He also made a small cut in the glass to gain some energy. Mogram was amazed after seeing this, while Red immediately offered the rest of the glass they had. He also told the leader of the Gem Giants to split it among themselves as they needed it to survive, and that they didn't have to offer anything in exchange. And Rudy was already prepared to distribute the glasses, so the leader finally accepted them. The other Gem Giants rejoiced, while their leader offered eternal friendship to Red and his group to show their gratitude. The Gem Giants happily sliced the glasses to gain energy. Rudy asked Red why Demis created the Gem Giants to be this way, as every living being was created to have a purpose. Red explained that by defeating Gem Giants, humans can obtain gems. He thought they were meant to become enemies in order to develop their blessings, and because of this, battles were unavoidable. However, the siblings didn't agree with this. They didn't want the monsters to exist just to be fodder for blessings. The leader of the Gem Giants thanked the group again, but Red immediately asked what was happening to their settlement. The leader explained that the Gem Beast, a monster that turns everything in its vicinity into a poisonous lead imbued with magic, had started living in it. Rudy realized that it may be related to the weakened Zug's forest, while Yarandrala thought the region would be in trouble if the groundwater got contaminated by lead, so they had to defeat the monster. Rit asked how they would fight it, but Red had no idea either, as based on the historical records, the Wood Elves failed to beat the monster as well, and there was no other mention of the monster. The warriors of the Gem Giants had also fallen to the Gem Beast, so their leader was worried that Red's group would suffer the same fate. But Red declared that they couldn't just ignore the monster. Afterwards, the group went to the southern mine, where the Gem Beast was located. They didn't forget to prepare potions for the battle, and they immediately looked for the monster. However, the monster found them instead, and it welcomed them with an energy blast. They were able to dodge thanks to Rudy's warning, and they were in disbelief seeing the attack turn the rocks into lead. The massive Gem Beast showed up from underneath the ground, and it immediately channeled energy into its mouth. Rudy charged to the front to block its attack with her sacred shield. Although the shield shattered, she managed to protect everyone and herself. Yarandrala tried to immobilize the monster using vines, but the vines immediately rotted, while Rit and Tiss's attacks were useless against the monster's hard skin, as even Rudy's sword broke when she slashed at the monster. Rudy took out another sword and led their attack. She managed to push back the monster, but she still failed to do any significant damage. The monster fell, but Red noticed that the impact was weak considering its size, and he wondered if it was using magic to prop up its body. Meanwhile, Rudy tried to land a powerful blow at the monster, but it used her sacred shield to block her sword. Before using Yarandrala's Thornbind and their other spells back at them, Yarandrala thought the monster was troublesome. But it even started using fire and water magic simultaneously, which didn't make any sense. Red figured out that the monster had multiple blessings, but first they had to worry about the meteorites that it had sent in their direction. Rudy used her sacred shield to deflect the meteorites back to the monster, and while the monster was down, they concluded that they had to lower its blessing with the Wind Elves' medicine. Yarandrala used the giant serpent made up of vines to immobilize the monster, while Red and Rit worked together to put the medicine in the monster's mouth. The monster immediately fell to the ground, as it couldn't even keep itself up without its blessings. The monster still tried to attack when Rudy approached it, but without its blessings, one punch from Rudy was enough to finish it off. Afterwards, the gems in the mines recovered their real appearance, while Rudy noticed carvings on the monster's body. Mogram was satisfied to finally obtain the Earth Crystal, and Red was also happy for him despite failing to find the blue sapphire he was looking for. The group enjoyed the beautiful view on their way back to Zoltan, although Mogram could only think of returning home to his wife. Meanwhile, Yarandrala decided to try living in Zoltan. She was curious why this place brought so much joy to both Red and Rit. Rudy happily approved Yarandrala's idea, so they decided to prepare for a welcoming party right away. At the same time, Van asked Lubo's approval to join the battle on the front lines. However, Lubo asked him to head out with Esta to defeat a monster and improve his blessings. But their conversation was interrupted when Lubo's subordinate reported that the former demon lord's warship was seen heading to Zoltan. Lubo decided to send a scout, and Van seemed interested in joining, but Esta and Lubo reminded him to focus on monster hunting and strengthening his blessings. Esta came back home late in the evening. Albert welcomed her, but she asked him to call her Esta instead of Theodora, so he apologized. Esta explained that the previous Demon Lord's airship, which Rudy used to head to Zoltan, was sighted, so Van could head to Zoltan to investigate. Esta didn't want Van to run into Rudy for Rudy's sake, so she asked Albert to inform Red about the situation. Albert agreed, but he asked if the new hero was the real deal, so Esta explained that the saint and the church's leadership recognized Van as the new hero. But she added that he was nothing like Rudy. Albert promised to do what he could to help, so Esta was really grateful. Al came so early in the morning to buy some dragon shroom essence that gives the user a burst of energy. Red was surprised. Now explained that it was because it was festival day, so it would be a busy day. Hearing this, Red also added some dragon shroom essence for Mido and Gauntz, and now was really thankful. Afterwards, Red closed his shop to prepare for the festival, and he also waited happily for Rit. Rit immediately asked how she looked. Red praised her, so Rit happily hugged him, also telling him how much she loved seeing him in his coat. Then they made sure they had everything ready before leaving to enjoy the festival. It was the Drake Rider and St. Licinius Solstice Festival, based on an Avalonian legend. Red was surprised that even the Zoltanians who liked to laze around were busy even early in the morning, while Rit was amazed by the number of stalls. At the same time, someone called out to Red. It was Gauntz, who was busy drinking. He was in a really good mood as he didn't have to work, and he even planned to take the next day off for his hangover. Tanta was impressed with Gauntz, so Red got worried that he might actually grow up as a good-for-nothing as well. Red wanted to influence Tanta. He declared that he would be back to work the next day. However, Tanta didn't sound impressed, and he pointed at the crowd who were enjoying the festival. Seeing the way Zoltan celebrated the festival, Rit realized that it was celebrated differently in each region, as the celebrations were formal in her country Longarvia. And although the festival's objective, which was to repel the winter demon, was the same, it was also done differently in different regions, and Tanta was proud that they did it by singing, dancing, and partying with all their hearts. Gauntz thought that made it more reasonable to take the next day off. Red agreed. She tried convincing Red that they also take the day off, and Red couldn't reject her. Rit, Tanta, and Gauntz rejoiced, but they were surprised when they heard Rudy and Tis celebrating. Rudy declared that they would also take the day off after hearing them, so Red was dejected, thinking that the two girls had grown up to be good for nothing as well. But he agreed that it was fun when Red asked her. At the same time, Megria was enjoying the sauna with Operara. However, Megria noticed that Operara couldn't endure the temperature anymore. Operara denied it, so Megria poured more water to increase the steam. Operara screamed in surprise before turning completely red. While they were drinking some milk, Red asked if they also had the day off. Megria affirmed, as the guild also does, while Aparara sadly explained that she just took a break while cooking her Odin, but she would be busy later in the day. Tis got excited. She knew that the Odin's flavor would be deeper the longer it was cooked. At the same time, they heard the commotion outside. A little kid was arguing with an elf about who was cutting in line. However, the kid became violent and threw a bottle at the elf. Luckily, a demi caught it to make sure the elf was safe. He explained that the kid was unstable because his blessing had awakened. The elf actually accepted this reason when the kid apologized, while Red looked concerned when the elf said that the kid couldn't be blamed for his blessing's impulses. While they were happy to see a demi grow into a fine young man, they suddenly heard Yerendrala calling behind the crowd. Tis noticed two suspicious people covered in capes, but she had to ignore them when Yerendrala came over. She was really having fun, as not only was she carrying all kinds of foods, she was also tricked into buying a weird-looking mask. Seeing her childish nature, Tis asked how old she was. Yerendrala joked that people see her as a young lady of around 50, and Tis was impressed by her elf joke. Afterwards, the group came to Aparara's stall to eat. Aparara was nervous to see a Kuraman elf with Red and the others. She explained that Kuraman elves were special, even among high elves, and a Zoltanian elf like her was like a country bumpkin, so she didn't know how to talk to Yerendrala. Yerendrala told her that their origins didn't matter. Aparara was still nervous, but Rudy asked her not to worry as Yerendrala was her friend. Aparara calmed down, and the group started picking what to eat. Red, Rudy, and Tis ordered some octopus, egg, and fish paste grills, while Rit wanted to try almost everything, but she started pouting when Red thought it was a huge meal. Afterwards, Red asked what Yerendrala wanted to eat, so she ordered the same as Red but with additional fish balls. Aparara immediately served their orders, but Red noticed something that looked like Japanese mustard that he knew was expensive. Aparara explained that Rudy ordered it for everyone. Red didn't want to let his little sister pay for him, but Rudy showed him their earnings as hotshot B-rank adventurers. She was determined to treat everyone to some really delicious Odin. Red asked Tis to stop Rudy, but she seemed to look forward to eating the delicious Odin instead, and she was amazed after taking her first bite. Red couldn't refuse anymore after seeing Rudy's determined look. Then Rudy watched happily when they started enjoying their meal. After their meal, the group ran into Godwin and Mistam. Godwin wanted to avoid them, but Mistam hit him, also saying that he didn't have to run anymore as he was already their representative for the trade with Zooks. Tis was still worried about whether he was trustworthy. Mistam was also uncertain, but she was confident in his skills, and she asked him to work hard to make up for his misdeeds. Afterwards, they went to watch the finale of the festival. The guard was in tears as the guy playing the role of the Winter Demon went off script and was refusing to get hit. However, he was fired up after seeing his beloved Rudy, but sadly, Rudy couldn't even remember that she threw him off the bridge on their way to Zoltan. The guard tried to introduce himself, but the Winter Demon knocked him out. Red wondered if it was Danon who was playing as the Winter Demon, and it was confirmed when Danon removed his mask and greeted them. Yerendrala was worried when she saw his arm, but he insisted that he was fine, although he headed out even against his doctor's will. Afterwards, Danon continued to play his role as the Winter Demon, and he finally decided to let the guards win. Red and Rit went to dance around the bonfire next. Tis was also nearby, but she was alarmed when she noticed some drunk people talking about a hidden airship in Zoltan. At the same time, Rit noticed Rudy staring at Red, so she immediately let Red dance with her. Rudy thanked Red, as she had so much fun at the festival thanks to him. However, Red told her it wasn't done yet as he invited her to dance. Rudy was hesitant, as it had been a while since she last danced, but Red insisted, saying that what matters is that they have fun while dancing. Rudy asked Red if she was really allowed to be happy. Red declared that since she had endured so much pain to make others happy, it was about time that she let herself feel happy. At the same time, Lubo asked for Esta's evaluation of Van. Esta explained that Van's unbelievable growth pace had surpassed her expectations, so she thought it was a waste to send him to an insignificant place like Zoltan. However, Lubo thought it was necessary to investigate the sighting of the Demon Lord's airship in Zoltan, and he asked Esta to provide support for Van if they really found it. Meanwhile, Red and Rit promised to be present together at the festival for years to come before sharing a kiss. Afterwards, Red gave Rit an engagement necklace as a way of promising her that he would get her the blue sapphire someday. Rit asked Red to put the necklace on her neck. She asked how it looked. Red said it looked great before calling her beautiful. Rit told Red how much she loved him, and she asked him to take responsibility. Meanwhile, Tis found the suspicious individuals looking for the airship. They immediately ran after recognizing Tis. They wondered what she was doing in Zoltan, so they failed to notice that Mr. Crawley-Wally had put up webs to trap them and help Tis corner them. However, someone threw daggers to cut the webs. Tis seemed to recognize him, but he managed to escape while Tis was dodging the dagger he threw. Lubo's subordinates were surprised after finding the Demon Lord's airship. However, Kigith ordered them to search it instead of just staring in surprise. One of the men asked Kigith why he was so wary, to the point that he decided to abandon their hideout without reason. He explained that someone was already observing them, ready to pounce at any time. Rudy starts her morning by being thankful that she can peacefully sleep at night and wake up in the morning. Afterwards, she did her unusual morning stretches and cleaned her place before taking a bath. She was thankful for her new truth blessing, as she wouldn't have had the chance to enjoy these things if she were still the hero. Rudy happily greeted Mr. Crawley-Wally, but she noticed that Tis seemed to be concerned about something. Afterwards, the duo visited their herb farm. Rudy thanked Tis for her help in raising the herbs, and Tis was visibly happy because of this. However, she was still surprised that Rudy chose to farm herbs. Rudy explained that she wanted growing herbs to be her main job, as aside from helping Red, she wanted to do something that wouldn't involve her battle prowess. Rudy tried asking Tis about the previous night, but Tis urged that they start working instead. She noticed that something was wrong with some herbs. Mr. Crawley-Wally told them that it was because the soil was too cold, and because they didn't know what to do, they decided to ask Red. Red explained that it was caused by cold mold, which is a common problem for herbs, but since they found it early, it was possible to fix it. Red asked for their help to fix it, so Rudy declared that she would, as it was her own herb farm. Red taught the two what to do before Rudy carefully mixed the chemicals they needed, and Rit was glad to see Rudy doing what she liked. After spraying the chemicals on the herbs, they just had to wait until the herbs recovered. Rudy thanked Red before she continued checking the herbs again. Red and Tis agreed that Rudy had changed a lot. They were glad that she's having the slow life she wanted, but Tis seemed troubled by something. Rudy was aware of this, so Red was certain that the duo would be fine. The next morning, Tis was planning to oversleep, but she was surprised when Rudy suddenly stared at her. After greeting each other, Rudy asked Tis's plan for the day. Tis told Rudy that she didn't have anything in particular, so Rudy asked her to accompany her on a very important task. However, they just started eating breakfast like usual, so Tis was confused. They take a bath next, and Tis fell silent when Rudy asked her if she liked baths, but she replied that she liked them enough that she even wrote review books. Then Rudy suddenly brought up Red's cooking. They agreed that he cooks delicious meals, but this just confused Tis further. While walking through the market, Tis continued to wonder what the very important task was. Rudy brought up that Red bought her a hairpin in one of the stores around them. However, Tis thought it was some hidden message telling her to stay alert, so Rudy looked a little troubled. At the same time, a drake suddenly ran wild. Tis worriedly declared that she would stop it, but Rudy just stopped its charge and ordered it to sit. Everyone around them was amazed, while Tis was already used to Rudy unintentionally attracting attention. Rudy brought Tis to a farm next. Tis was still thinking about the important task, but Rudy just approached the farmer and told them about a monster beneath the field. Afterwards, she punched the ground, forcing the gigantic carnivore worm to appear. However, what shocked them was when Rudy sliced the worm in half with her hand. They recognized Rudy as Zoltan's strongest adventurer. She thought that any ordinary adventurer could split the monster in half, so Tis had to tell her that it was something that wouldn't go unnoticed. Rudy brought Tis to the theater next to watch a popular play in town. Tis was enjoying the story's tense development, but she was surprised when she suddenly saw Rudy on stage. Rudy realized that the actor's sword was cursed. The actor refused to surrender it, and he also got possessed. Rudy announced to the confused crowd that she was just an ordinary adventurer, but it was Tis's acting like it was part of the story that managed to keep the play going. The princess asked for Rudy's help, and while seeing the amazed crowd, Tis was certain that they wouldn't forget what they were watching for the rest of their lives. While waiting for their food, Tis told Rudy that the play would add her character to their story. So Rudy was feeling down after attracting so much attention again. She thought everything didn't go as planned. Tis was surprised to see this side of Rudy, but Rudy told herself that the day wasn't over yet. She stared at Tis and asked if anything was bothering her, but Tis brought up how she was acting strange all day. Rudy explained that she wanted to treat Tis to her favorite Odin and listen to her vent her frustration, as she knew Tis was troubled by something recently. However, nothing went as planned. Tis thought that Rudy was so innocent that she couldn't predict the consequences of her abnormal strength, but she also thought that she was too kind. Rudy was troubled that Tis had to clean up every time she messed up. However, Tis told Rudy that she was much better now. Rudy pouted, but they laughed when they remembered how she threw a knight off the bridge before. Tis was grateful for Rudy's concern, but she wanted to take care of the individuals looking for the airship, so Rudy didn't have to worry anymore. Lubo's men wrote a report after investigating the airship. However, Kigith asked them to remove Tis from it, and when they refused, he immediately killed them. His priority was to settle things with Tis and not Lubo and the church's orders. He continued to wait patiently for Tis's arrival. Tis climbed up the airship without any fear, fully aware that Kigith was waiting for her arrival. Seeing Tis, Kigith remembered the time when they were still training together under their master, but Tis only cared about getting rid of an Assassin's Guild deserter like Kigith. However, Kigith liked her bloodlust, and he actually invited Tis to be his right-hand man instead. Tis asked where his allies were, and when she heard that he had killed them, she found it even more reasonable to get rid of him. Hearing this, Kigith thought she lacked the thirst for murder, and he declared that he would teach her what it really means to be an assassin. Kigith swiftly charged at Tis, and she was pushed back after exchanging blows. However, she used Mr. Crawley Wally's web to launch herself back for a counterattack. Tis managed to wound Kigith in his left eye, but it didn't seem to bother him, and he started using explosives to fight. Kigith knew that Tis would protect the airship, so he wanted to use this to his advantage. Tis couldn't believe that he would rely on this method, as their master strictly forbade them to use explosives to avoid killing innocent bystanders. However, Kigith didn't care. He threw more explosives to force Tis to protect the airship, leaving herself open. Tis was covered in injuries after blocking the explosives. She couldn't understand why Kigith, who used to be faithful to his assassin's blessing, turned into an indiscriminate murderer. Seeing Tis's sorry state, Kigith threw more explosives to finish her off. However, a strong gust of wind stopped it from reaching Tis, and Tis didn't let this chance slip. She swiftly appeared behind Kigith and landed a fatal blow. Kigith begged for his life. He revealed that he was working under Lubo. He explained that Lubo wanted to retrieve and use the airship. He thought this information would allow him to keep his life. Tis was disgusted by his actions. She thought he was nothing but a disgraceful murderer. However, she knew that he could only adhere to his blessings and had no will of his own. After Tis had taken care of everything, Rudy revealed herself. Tis explained that Kigith was a rogue assassin. Afterwards, she explained that the Assassin's Guild was actually made so people with the Assassin's blessing would have a place where they belonged. She also added that they are free to refuse assassination missions, especially unreasonable ones, as they are just doing everything to survive. Rudy realized that the Assassin's Guild forbade murders without reason, although Tis thought it was still assassination, so she didn't want Rudy to get involved and ruin the slow life she wanted. She thought she couldn't stay by Rudy's side, as she couldn't quit being an assassin. However, Rudy told her that she would be her friend regardless and that she could just become a slow-life assassin. Tis had no idea what that was, but she was already in tears, so Rudy told her that she would help her regardless of their roles as heroes or assassins. She also told Tis that she could tell her everything, so Tis was in tears while promising to do so. Lubo was unsatisfied that Kigith didn't give the airship's exact location, but he decided to head to Zoltan with Van and finally achieve his ambitions. Meanwhile, Van wanted to move forward and leave his party behind, only caring about getting stronger. Esta doesn't seem to like it, but they were interrupted when Lubo signaled for them to return. Tis apologized for coming so late to Red's house in the evening. Red didn't mind it, so she immediately explained that Lubo was looking for the Demon Lord's airship. Red was intrigued after reading about Esta winning against Ultra, a general of the demon's army. Red wondered if she was serving the church, but Red thought she was a mercenary. Afterwards, she asked if they should really hand over the Demon Lord's airship to the church. Red thought the church could put it to good use, but he declared that they would stop them if they misused it, and he was more concerned with making sure the church couldn't find Rudy. Rudy and Tis were glad that they could save their herbs from the cold mold. Rudy was thankful for Red's advice and for Tis's help in growing them. Afterwards, they planned how they could sell the herbs. Red wanted to buy their first harvest for his apothecary, but he also offered to help sell the rest to the Adventurers Guild, Clinics, and Merchants Guild. He thought he should help Rudy as her mentor in her slow life, so Rudy was overjoyed. Red visited Danon, who was busy training and trying to get in shape for combat. Red told Danon that he would miss him once he left, so Danon suggested that he join him to massacre the demon army, and he thought it was too bad when Red wanted to stay and ran his apothecary with Rit. Danon didn't try to change Red's mind, but he asked Red to spar with him before he left Zoltan. Rit was worried when she found out about it, but she also asked if Red could win. However, Red knew it was impossible as Danon's martial artist blessing and his love for combat were a perfect match, while his guide blessing only gave him skills meant to protect the young hero, so he was certain that he didn't have a chance. Rit was confused that he accepted to spar, but she also asked him to spar with her. Rit pouted, so they considered using Merciful Spell to avoid injuring themselves. However, Red declared that he still couldn't, as she would still feel pain even if she couldn't suffer injuries. Red started training his swordsmanship the next day. He was so rusty that he thought Danon would be disappointed. While Red was resting with Rit, Urandrala arrived, immediately bringing up his spar with Danon, so Red was surprised that she already knew about it. Urandrala suggested that Red train with her. Rit was confused since Urandrala was a spirit mage, so Urandrala explained that she was actually the founder of the famous Lotus-style staff technique. And Red added that the famous book 100 Strategies, The Beauty of War, was also compiled by her. Afterwards, Urandrala explained that it would be hard for Red to regain his past skills, but she was certain that he could possess a different type of strength from all the experience he gained since moving to Zoltan. Red was enlightened. He thought he should focus his training on his strengths. Seeing his determination, Urandrala immediately planned the training camp and asked Rit to come as well. Rudy and Tis also joined, and Rudy was overjoyed that she and Red sounded like couples who met up for a date. However, Tis was more worried if Red could survive training with Rudy. Red explained that he taught her swordsmanship so it shouldn't be a problem. Danon also showed up to join them. Red had already expected this, and he happily agreed. While Red was preparing the tents with Rit and Urandrala, Tis had already collected some firewood. Rudy and Danon also did, but they were lectured by Urandrala as they actually pulled out some trees to compete on who could collect more. Afterwards, they decided to have lunch, but they didn't have enough servings as Danon joined them unexpectedly. Rudy gave him his portion, as hunger was still a new experience for her, but Tis and Urandrala still wanted to share their portions with her too. Seeing this, Red decided to just separate each dish and have everyone grab whichever they wanted. Danon immediately tried the sausage, and he was speechless at its delicious taste. Danon thought it had been a while since the heroes' party gathered. Although they had already lost Ares, they knew that Theodora was the masked knight named Escarlata, as she was the only knight they knew who could beat a demon lord's army general. While declaring that he would try to regroup with Theodora to hunt down the demon lord's army general, Danon and Urandrala fought for the remaining sautéed duck, but Rudy effortlessly took it from them. Afterwards, the group finally started training, although Rudy decided to shower under the waterfall instead while Mr. Crawley Wally happily soaked in the water, and they only made their way back to the training camp before sunset. While training, Danon noticed that Red's swordsmanship would change based on what he was facing, so he thought their sparring would be fun, and he was looking forward to it. After their meal, Red and Rit took a bath together. They thought Danon was the second strongest human behind Rudy, but Red knew that their sparring wasn't really about winning, as it would be a way for him to show Danon how he had chosen to live his life. Urandrala cast merciful spells on both Red and Danon to prevent them from getting injured, while Rudy gave the signal to start the battle. During their first exchange, Red's slashes were fast enough to keep up with Danon, leaving them in a stalemate. And even when Danon managed to disarm Red, Red managed to dodge his punch, counter, and throw him away. Danon was totally impressed with Red. He knew he was superior in strength, but he failed to get the upper hand. However, he already found a way to win. He knew Red was only predicting his attacks, so it was enough to just use attacks that were unfamiliar to Red. The two declared that they would give it everything they'd got before they charged at each other, and Danon was determined to go beyond his full strength if it was what he needed to do to win, while Red was determined to use everything he gained in life to match him. However, like everyone had expected, Danon overpowered Red in the end to gain the victory. Red thought he was a goner without the merciful spell, but Danon was impressed. Although Danon couldn't understand the slow life that Red had wanted, he could still see Red's strength, and he thought he was still the same powerful person that he respected, so he wished him happiness and the best in his slow life. Red was thankful, and he has the same respect for Danon, whose life was about getting stronger in continuous battle. Afterwards, Rudy also asked to spar with Danon, which made Tis worried. However, Danon was actually delighted, although Rudy slammed his face to the ground in mere seconds. After returning from training, Red was surprised to see Albert waiting for him. After greeting each other, Red asked if Theodora had returned with him. Albert replied that he came alone to bring a message from her. Red was curious, so Albert immediately explained that a new hero named Van Flamberge had emerged and he could make his way to Zoltan to take the former Demon Lord's airship. At the same time, Van and Lavender entered a pub before a commotion broke out as someone with a wrongdoer's blessing had killed someone. And it wasn't enough for him as he dared everyone around him to come at him to avenge the person he killed. However, Van recognized his wrongdoer's blessing and beheaded him without a second thought. Esta arrived after this. She asked what had happened, so Van explained that he had killed a murderer. Van was surprised when Esta wanted the full details about the murder and questioned him for killing the murderer instead of capturing him. Van couldn't understand the need for these, so Esta explained that every person's life involves more than their blessing's urges, and everyone has their own free will. However, Van declared that she was mistaken, as all of his battles were offerings to demis, and every person with a wrongdoer's blessing was meant to lose their life to someone, so the murderer fulfilled his role by dying in his hands. He also added that he even felt that he had grown as a hero after killing the murderer, and his blessing would surely save the world. Esta was confused, but Lubo arrived and praised him as a hero. Van thought he was still a hero by name as he hadn't fought the demon army yet, and was nothing compared to Rudy, but Lubo didn't say anything about it as he declared that they were heading to Zoltan. Albert explained that Van's blessing as a hero has been recognized by the church, and Lubo was put in charge of him. However, they were confused about how two heroes existed at the same time. They thought it was abnormal, but Danon thought there was no point to think about it now, and the real issue is that Van is coming to Zoltan. Yarandrala asked how much the church knew about Rudy, so Albert explained that they didn't know anything about her, not even about her campaign. Red thought it was because they kept it a secret, but it was still thanks to Rudy and Theodora defeating multiple demon army generals that there was peace in Avalon. Because of this, Red concluded that Rudy's disappearance wouldn't be an issue unless Van found out that she walked away from battle. Everyone agreed that the two heroes couldn't meet. They knew it was hopeless to disguise Rudy as she always sticks out, so Yarandrala suggested that Red, Rudy, and Rit go on a vacation while Van is in Zoltan looking for the airship. They thought it was a good idea, so Tis, Danon, and Yarandrala declared that they would take care of everything while they were away. And Tis even suggested great tourist spots for their vacation. Red wondered if it would be a problem if Danon ran into Lubo, but Danon had a bad feeling about Van's coming visit, so he wanted to stay behind, and he thought he could just explain that he was kicked out of the heroes' party because of his arm. The trio first visited St. Durant Village, which was named after a lumberjack who was considered a hero after building a home overnight for all the settlers who had lost their house to the hill giants' attack. Rit and Rudy thought his feat was unbelievable, and they copied his pose after seeing his statue. They were also excited to explore the village. The trio visited a trading hub before renting a place to stay the night. At the same time, Tis thought that Rudy, Red, and Rit were already at their destination. She also thought she should bring Mr. Crawley Wally on a vacation once everything was solved. Meanwhile, Rudy and Rit were amazed by the beautiful scented candle in their cottage. They thought everyone, including Mr. Crawley Wally, would like them, so they planned to buy them on their way back. Afterwards, they wondered if Van had arrived in Zoltan, but they were hoping he would also leave right away. Being a hero herself, Rudy knew the urges of the hero blessing, so she was certain that Van wouldn't stay for long, and she thought they should focus on enjoying their vacation instead. Red agreed, and he decided to prepare some food. The next day, the trio found a girl who was writhing in pain after leaving the cottage. They immediately checked on her, and even when she said she was fine, they decided to bring her to the cottage, seeing that she was in pain. Red wanted to bring Kate to a doctor, but after he found out that the village didn't have any doctors, he decided to check her condition himself. Red asked her a few questions, and he immediately realized that she was poisoned when he saw her trembling hands and when she mentioned that she got a cut in the leg accidentally. Kate panicked after hearing this, as he also didn't know what to do, but Red immediately calmed her down while Red explained that he could make some medicine for her. He immediately asked Rudy to get the ingredients they needed for the medicine before asking Rit to use her magic to help ease Kate's pain. The heavy rain didn't stop Rudy. She immediately came back covered in mud after falling down the valley after getting the ingredient. Red was worried, but he was thankful that he could finally complete the medicine. Rudy was happy that she could help, but she also left right away to look for someone who could pick Kate up. Kate immediately felt better after taking the medicine. She expressed her gratitude before leaving. However, they were surprised after seeing the crowd waiting outside the cottage. Rudy explained that they tagged along when she asked for Kate's house. Everyone was thankful to the trio for helping Kate, and some even offered items to show their gratitude. Red was completely exhausted after all these events. He ended up sleeping on Rudy's lap, who happily watched him with Rit. During their dinner, Red tried the traditional curry recipe he got from the villagers, although its strong color and pungent aroma made Rudy and Rit worried. Red was confused by their get-up, but he decided to let them be, and they started eating dinner. However, they couldn't help but worry about what was happening in Zoltan, but they were certain that not coming back temporarily was still the best choice. The next day, Danon brought some food for Albert, who was observing the outskirts of Zoltan. Albert was surprised to see the nice-looking sandwiches that Danon made, but he was more impressed after giving them a try. He thought his surprised expression offended Danon. However, Danon actually thanked him for saving his life instead, and they started to get along while eating together. Meanwhile, Van and his party finally arrived at Zoltan. Theodora couldn't help but smile as she remembered her former companions after seeing Lubo throw up because of motion sickness. Van asked if they were from the heroes' party, and he wanted to meet them, but Theodora thought it would be difficult. Van agreed, as he thought that saving the world was their sole focus. Tis was fishing nearby. However, she was observing Van, and she thought he was nothing like Rudy. After entering Zoltan, Lubo waited for Kigif, but he immediately thought that he got himself killed on some shady business when he didn't show up to meet them. Because of this, they had no idea about the airship's exact location. Van wanted to look for it himself, but Lubo decided that they check in at an inn first before planning their next course of action. Meanwhile, Red's group was playing some board games when Mr. Crawley Wally showed up to deliver a letter. The letter explained Van's arrival at Zoltan and that nothing had happened so far, so they could still relax, and Mr. Crawley Wally even asked to play the board game with them. Tis disguised herself as a maid to continue observing Van, who was ignoring the mayor of Zoltan. He was in a foul mood after Lubo rejected his idea to look for the airship right away. Theodora told the mayor that he was exhausted from their voyage, but she wasn't pleased with his behavior. However, he showed an even worse display of his behavior when he got furious at the maid who brought him some food. Everyone around them stared in surprise, while Theodora immediately asked Van to go outside with her, and Van was actually happy to hear it, not feeling any remorse for his actions, while Lubo could only sigh deeply as he watched the two. Theodora asked Van to at least hide his displeasure. However, Van was actually happy to receive her nagging. He thought it was great that he could learn from someone with a high-level blessing like Theodora, but she thought he never really learned anything. Afterwards, she asked Van to show some respect to the people who organized the party to celebrate his arrival and show their admiration. However, Van argued that it wasn't necessary, as he was just following the Almighty's will to save the lives of the people as a hero. Theodora explained that some people see the hero as a symbol of courage, and he might have to lead them in battle at some point, so it was necessary to understand their feelings and respect them. Van agreed. However, he declared that it was natural that people would fight with courage and die as a result, and the only thing that matters is their faith in the almighty Demis. Theodora couldn't believe that Van would let or even ask the people fighting alongside him to just give up their lives. However, Van declared that it was normal, as martyrdom is an expression of faith. At the same time, Lubo showed up to explain their plan. He decided to leave the search of the airship to the people of Zoltan, while they would focus on slaying a salt dragon. Van was excited, as he thought that a dragon was an enemy of the hero. Theodora asked if it was necessary. She knew that a salt dragon wouldn't attack a human if they kept their distance. But Lubo wanted to use the dragon to level Van's blessing and retrieve the Fairy King's treasure, which the dragon possessed. Van thought it was a good idea, as it was in the church's scriptures that slaying a monster was morally correct. Theodora explained that he would regret it if he made too many enemies, but Van declared that it was the hero's job to eradicate all evil. Tis witnessed everything, but she was almost discovered by Lavender. The next day, Lubo and Theodora started the battle against the salt dragon. They made an opening for Van so he could finish off the dragon with one slash of his sword. Afterwards, he retrieved the Fairy King's shield that was being protected by the dragon. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to drop a like if you enjoy this video, and please subscribe so you won't miss the next part. And just comment down any anime you want to see in this channel.